Billa. Nick Parsons.
Hi.
Hi, Billa.
Hi, everyone.
Is that Josh? Hi, Josh.
How you doing? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Long time no
That fresh
see.
trim. It looks very fresh.
It is fresh. Yeah, a bit too fresh. Yeah.
Right, Ted.
Hello, MC. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to see all the others. Val, the usual suspects. Adam, Billa.
Yeah,
hello,
hello,
everyone.
yeah. All right, I think
Valve out of this world.
my screen is apart again. You know, I have this really old laptop, and so I might switch back to my profile picture. Yeah, but it's nice to see you all. Yeah, yeah. I disappear like a ghost on it. Yeah.
You already have Val. We can just see the silhouette of some type on over planet Earth.
I know what it is like. Yeah, I mean, if I put my hands up. Yeah, but I just wonder why it's a battery.
It's quite ethereal.
A few days ago, yeah.
It's quite ethereal, Val.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. My son actually gave me his own laptop, which is an old one as well, but I haven't got used to it yet. So next time I use his and this is better. Yeah. It's okay. I just switched back to my stop video, but it's lovely to see you all, and it's great. Yeah, great to be in your team. Yeah, yeah.
And
thanks.
Billa, we need to touch base, don't we? Are you happy to do a little bit of a sort of keynote at our conference potentially on connection?
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to know more information and look forward to it. Yeah, I can't believe it's already been a year.
I know. Adam and I have kittens about the planning of this thing. It's an absolute logistical nightmare. But if anyone can do it, Adam can. And I suppose just to throw it open to the rest of you as well, Josh, yourself and Chloe might want to do something. So the theme is around connection, and it kind of ties in the families and visitors work that we've been doing at HMP Birmingham, but obviously it's a broader theme than that. Can't hear you, Tev. Oh, you're not talking to us. Sorry. So yeah, if anybody's got something that they particularly want to bring as a keynote sort of session, as interactive as possible would be brilliant. All around connection, whatever that means to you and your social enterprise or charity, or just you as an individual, then that would be great. Same goes to you, Nick. Anybody, it's open to anybody to kind of put forward a proposal for a slot. So yeah, we've already got a few speakers. We've got Anne Fox come in, who was the deputy chair for the Lord Farmer review into families and the golden thread of rehabilitation. Lord Farmer couldn't do it himself, so Anne Fox kindly said that she will kind of present a farmer review, what they recommended and what's happened since, if anything. So we've kind of got the families covered, but yeah, anything else that you guys want to bring or you think would be a good topic, we'd love to hear from you. I'll just share my screen and then we'll crack on with the topic of today, which is obviously about, can you see that? I always get a bit scared about this sharing screen thing. Oh, sorry, I'll let Lynn introduce herself as well, my colleague.
Hello.
They can hear.
Can they? Hello, my name's Lynn and I am a lead support worker, resettlement support worker with New Leaf, and I do the departure lounge at HMP Birmingham, where I, see the lads when they come out on a morning.
Yeah, she does a great job. So, so today's session is obviously all about the IMB. They just keep coming up, both in our work in custody, as a route of complaints and part of the process in custody that people, prisoners especially, should follow. But also I've been working with them on the outside, wherever possible, to just kind of, I suppose, gently challenge some of the misconceptions that are out there, which we'll talk about, what you guys know about the IMB, and also what they're hoping to achieve with their sort of strategic vision, and potentially bringing in people with lived experience. So I think maybe I'd just do some sort of what you call it when it's like room keeping. I can't think of the word.
Something like that, but
you know what I'm saying anyway. Just to say that basically we're recording this event. We record all our events for people that can't attend. So if you don't want to be videoed, you can just have your phone and have your camera off, and that will, by the very nature, anonymise you. let's go to the next slide. So things to do is raise your hand if you want to, speak. It's all about your voices, not just ours. Just mute your microphone if you're not speaking, so that we're not disrupted by the dog and the cats fighting in the background. Obviously unmute when you do want to talk, and just please use the chat function to connect with each other. It's all about networking as well as the discussion points, so feel free to make connections and nurture them as we go. We've got two things in the chat. Housekeeping, that's the one. I was like, room keeping, beekeeping. Yeah, housekeeping, thank you, Tev. Let's close that. Can't close it now. Get off my screen. So that's just done something to my there we go. So just a little bit of background about the New Leaf Network, where we're at currently. So we've currently got just over 230 members and allies, which is fantastic. It goes up every single time Adam and I meet. Members are people with convictions and lived experience of the criminal justice system directly. People like myself and Lynn, a few of you in attendance today. And then ally organisations are the organisations that support people like us, or that are formed by people like us. So CLINCS, for example, Prisoner Learning Alliance, Prisoners Education Trust, Criminal Justice Alliance, all the big players really in the third sector working in the criminal justice system are ally members of ours, and that means that they support our mission statement, which is to bring together and holistically and practically support those with lived experience to progress really, both in leadership roles and board members, as well as when they're fresh out of prison, to tap into opportunities that we may have knowledge about and access to share that knowledge and access with those that are maybe not as far along as we are, and hopefully support their journey and their rehabilitation and desistance. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. So with the 230 members and allies that we've got, Adam does a weekly bulletin that he sends out to everybody who is on our list. And so far this year, we've shared over 450 employment vacancies. Most of those vacancies, if not all of them, are specifically for people with lived experience. They're open to our community. So we should be sharing them widely as possible to make sure that we get applicants, a diverse range of applicants basically. And also use them within your own organisation. That was some of the feedback from the study that I did that kind of galvanised the network. One of the big things that people wanted was access to employment vacancies for their community. And that's kind of what the network does really well, I think, is pull together all those opportunities and advertise them in a succinct, consistent way. So please share those vacancies widely. We've had several online discussion and networking events so far this year, although I do think we've probably not been as organised as we were in previous years. I think COVID's death has kind of meant that we're all really busy again. Luckily, I've got Adam kind of kicking me into touch and reminding me about things and being the organisational genius that he is. Currently, we're planning for our third conference and awards event, which some of you have been lucky enough to benefit from. Bila was the winner at last year's conference and awards. Josh, you didn't win, but Chloe won, didn't she, in the first year, I think? Yeah, Chloe is somebody that works for Josh with lived experience and does amazing work down south, I think it is. So just to kind of spread the love with that really amongst your networks, especially those with lived experience. We want to get some really hot nominations in and really give these people a platform that deserve to have a platform and be shouted about. So any organisations that you work with that use lived experience for the benefit of the community, please share any information about the awards and ceremony, because we just really want to give those people a platform and celebrate them like they've never been celebrated before. And actually this year's even more exciting because it's the first time that people will be able to attend in person as well as online. So it's going to be a hybrid event. The first 2 years were only online because of COVID, and I think we're widely attended actually. I think the first one we had over 100 or around 80 attendees, and then last year I think it was slightly less, but still a good turnout. And as always, it's all about connection and collaborating with individuals and organisations, creating that positive network that we've all benefited from when we got out of prison, or when we're supporting people coming out of prison, and just to kind of grow that and make it really cohesive and work for the community that we serve. Has anyone got any questions or things they'd like to say about that?
Can
Yeah.
I just say, I actually won the nomination last year for Prison Worker of the Year, and that's really put me in good stead for the work that I've done this year with the departure lounge.
Yeah, I mean, it looks corrupt, I think, Lynn,
Yeah.
winning one of the awards, but it's important to say that we had an independent panel. So, for example, Billa won through his own right. It wasn't because of knowing us as an organisation. We have people like Gethin Jones, prison governors, former winners who kind of take part in the decision making of who wins the awards, and they're all not associated with New Leaf. So it's a very independent panel that decides who wins what, and they do that on the person's merit, which is brilliant. And actually, if you've won formally, so Billa, we'd love to have you come back and do a session on connection, but also we'd like you to be on the judging panel for this year's nominees and stuff, if that's okay. But we can pick this up outside of. Yeah,
Marie, I was actually runner-up last year.
Oh, were you? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe get somebody to nominate you again, and you might clear up this year.
Maybe, thank you.
Okay, these are the awards categories, sorry, for the awards this year. So we've got Lex Ally of the Year, so that's about organisations that support us as a movement, really. So it would be an ally organisation such as Clinks, any of the stakeholder orgs that you guys work with. Then we've got Employee of the Year, so somebody that maybe works for you or works for HMPPS, could be working for anybody, but they're an employee working within the CJS with lived experience of the CJS. Then we've got Entrepreneur of the Year, so open to anybody that's entrepreneurial and doing great things in the criminal justice system. We've got Innovative Employer, which again would be somebody potentially like Timpsons or Greg's, or anybody that's really doing great things around the recruitment of those with lived experience. And then we've got Volunteer of the Year. That's a really important award, actually, I think, because it's people that are giving up their time for nothing to kind of give back and to develop their own skills and attributes within the CJS. And then we've got Employer of the Year. That can't be right, Ad. We've got Innovative Employer of the Year and then Employer of the Year. Can't hear you. You're on mute.
But I can see employee and I can see employer. Yes, that can't be right. No,
So we'll have a look at those
that really can't
categories.
be right.
No, we'll have a look at the categories and we'll get those out on Twitter and stuff, so you can start spreading the love and sharing the hell out of it. But there's basically 6 categories. So we're going to just kick off today's event with a poll that Adam's put together. Have you got the poll, Ad?
Yeah, we'll launch it now.
I'll have a look who's chatting on the chat as well. See what you're saying. So we're just going to do the first question, Adam, because it's brought up all of the
Yeah,
questions.
'cause it's a few questions in one pool. We've got the second pool with the same questions,
Okay,
but you know,
that's okay. So if everybody just answers the poll questions, and then what we're going to do is gather the feedback, and then we're going to ask similar questions at the end and see if there's been any change.
On question 3, it says, do you think members of the IMB are representative of those they serve? And it says choice 1, choice 2.
Yeah,
What's that
should be, choice 1 should be yes, and choice 2 should be no.
Okay, thanks.
thanks for flagging that up, Nick.
My apologies. We just quickly changed some of the questions earlier on.
So you can answer this if you want.
Hang on, I ain't got my glasses. No, not really. I don't know what their role is either. Unsure on that one.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
is the one
No, I'm sure.
I'm unsure. Would you consider? Oh, no.
Everybody answered, may as we
So we've got 50% of you do know what the role of the IMB is, with 17% saying no and 33% saying unsure. So you've got an even split really between no and unsure and yes. Do you consider the IMB to be, no, that's not the second question. Do you consider the IMB to be independent from HMPPS or government? People, 33% of you said yes. 17% said no and 50% were unsure. Do you think members of the IMB are representative of those they serve? So nobody put yes. 33% said no or choice 2 and 67% were unsure. And would you consider becoming an IMB member? 50-50 between yes and no. So I think we can probably use this as a bit of a discussion point to start with. I mean, so firstly, who is not aware of what the IMB does? If you sort of said that you're not aware, do you mind just unmuting yourself and we'll just dissect it a little bit more? Anybody? Or maybe if you put yes, that you do know what the IMB do, maybe you'd be happy to share that and then enlighten the rest of the group.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe provide my comments. I put yes, only because obviously I'm an ex-offender myself, and I remember when they would come in and do visits and perhaps sometimes knock on our doors to talk to us. And in my view, I think they're there to ensure that everything that should be going on is going on, so that, you know, the welfare of the prisoners being looked after, the education system is doing what it's doing. It's like a bit like Ofsted, but not necessarily like Ofsted. If that's the way I look at them. They are different to the prison inspections, of course, but this is a more informal, more frequent visits by people who are there to ensure that prisoners are getting treated appropriately. I wouldn't say equally or fairly, because they never are, but appropriately, I think, is my comments.
Can anyone build on that a bit more, or does anyone want to build on that a bit more about what they think the IMB's role is in custody and or out in the community?
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
after you.
From my experience, IMB seems to be at the end of the complaint procedure. So they'll put a complaint in. If it doesn't get dealt with, then it goes to IMB.
Yeah, is that an automatic escalation, Nick, in your mind, or is that
I
something
doubt that. I don't think it's automatic. I think the prisoner would have to do that themselves.
Yeah, I agree. So it kind of relies on, I suppose, the prisoners knowing about the IMB role and their powers maybe of that escalation process. Josh?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about this isn't a generic statement. It's just basically the prisoners that we work with here in the Southwest, which is quite a few of them. Where I sit is I see them a lot on a lot of the meetings that I'm in within the prisons. But I it's one role. I sit there and I just think I know what you're supposed to do, but in terms of Tev just said it there, and you know, the welfare and everything else of the prisoners, but we know, particularly again the prisoners I work with, it's an absolute shower, and you just think, what is going on? What are you doing? And more to the point is, do they have any teeth? You know, because things ain't changing. That's just an observation.
No, I take that observation and second it, really. And I suppose there's a couple of variables in there, isn't there, that could be the reason why. So is it that prisoners don't know what the IMB do or what their powers are? Or, I mean, I've heard, for example, when I've quoted to prisoners IMB has been part of the escalation process around complaints. There's this kind of general commentary that goes along with that, which is that they're not credible, potentially, that the IMB aren't seen as credible. There's been feedback that they sometimes spend more time with the officers than they do with the prisoners, so more time fact-finding with the officers, who I suppose are in charge of the shit show that you just mentioned, rather than actually engaging with prisoners for whatever reason that is. Maybe because of the kind of people that are recruited into the IMB. It tends to be, obviously it's volunteer led, so typically the people that volunteer in the criminal justice system are white, middle class, potentially middle-aged, if not getting to that point, affluent people. I mean, I don't know if that's your sort of experience of IMB. Please challenge me if I'm wrong, because this is an open forum. You know,
I agree,
That's
definitely
what-
agree.
That's
When
what I see as well. Yeah.
when the last person said, have they got any teeth? I thought he meant it actual, because I was going to lol at it. I genuinely have never seen an IAB member under the age of 55, 60. And they all look like they're from, you know, well-to-do sort of departments, let's say.
yeah. As
Yeah,
anyone,
it's true.
is that your experience?
Yeah, I can say I agree with what you say. I had a dealings with the IMB when I was moved from Foston to Drake, and the outcome was this old gentleman came to see me and said, we can't do anything because you've moved from one prison to the other, so we haven't got the scope to do anything. End of story, and that was it. So
I mean, the one good thing I've heard about, like you said about they're the final point in the complaints process, and that's the only time I'll really quote them to prisoners, is if, you know, the Comp 1 and the Comp 2 haven't got a satisfactory result. I'll sort of say, now you need to progress it to the IMB, because in my mind what happens is all IMB, I don't know if this is right, and people who know the processes might be better versed in this. I've been told that an IMB complaint goes straight to the governor and sits in front of the governor, and that's where it usually gets resolved, because the
Yeah,
governor.
I'd agree there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe the teeth that we're talking about. You know, any complaint that gets under the governor's nose has kind of got a certain amount of credibility, I'd argue. But is it being used by the people that it's set up to serve?
Got Billa with his hand up, and then Josh after Billa there.
Go for it, Villa.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to share my bit of experience with the IMB. So there's been 2 incidents. Believe it or not, but when I was in Cat D, I was up for a nicking, and I had one of the people from the IMB that came in to show some support, and they was like outraged at what was actually going on.
Did you ask for that help, Villa, or was that?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah, because you know you're a prisoner and you're alone. So I thought having someone like that would have a little bit of weight in the actual nicking, which I don't know if it really made a difference at the end of the day, because as we discussed earlier, you know, they have no teeth or real pull. All they really do is maybe write a report, make a recommendation, it'll go to the governor, and 9 times out of 10 in my experience, it won't even get looked at. There's a bit of prejudice there, I guess. But my second experience was when I was released. I worked with National Prison Radio. I had my own miniseries there, which was paid by the IMB Deaths in Custody, and I was interviewed the chair of the IMB, Juliet Lyons, and she seems to be wanting to make some different headway. It was all around a lockdown at the time, about being safe during lockdown for prisoners, and the amount of people's mental health, and especially the deaths in custody that had risen, especially in the prisons that I were in at. But again, it comes down to them just making a report, making a recommendation, and then, you know, maybe speaking to someone high up in the prison policies to make a difference. But I've still yet to see any change. But fair, you know, to fair play, I haven't really pursued to have a look. But you know, overall, I think they play a vital role. You know, they are someone who are meant to be impartial and there to help the prisoners. More awareness, I guess, needs to happen from the prisoners' point of view. I didn't hear about IMB until I got to Cat D. So if you're in, you know, Cat B, Cat C, I'm not sure how visible they actually are. So maybe, you know, they need to work on that a little bit, you know, because if they're meant to represent the prisoners, which they do in one sense, but do they really make an effective difference? I don't really know about that. But yeah, so, but they're an important cog, and, you know, us discussing it right now, you know, and bringing awareness and, you know, speaking to people that we know, especially on the inside, you know, at least they've got someone impartial there that have got the back ultimately, I guess. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Billa. So I suppose one of the words that you mentioned quite a lot there was the impartiality of IMB. Just, you know, amongst us, who sees them as being completely impartial, if anybody,
No,
or is
that
it
was
the
the-
opposite? Go on.
And that was the point I was going to raise there, was it feels like it's too pally. It's, you know, the independent part, I mean, that needs looking at massively. It feels too pally. Like I said, I'm in a lot of meetings when they're there, and it's like the old boys club, if I'm honest. And we're doing some stuff with 5 prisons down here around the DERF forms. And the first recommendation, it needs to be independent. Whoever's investigating this stuff doesn't need to be involved with prison officers, governors, prison, to be totally independent. And that for me needs to be the same model with the monitoring board. And it'd be interesting to see what, and I'll ask now actually, it'd be interesting to see what the statutory requirements are as well, because that's the thing that makes the governors jump, isn't it? If there's a statutory provision, if there isn't any statutory provision in terms of complaints or looking at complaints and getting them down, then that's where the teeth part come into it, because they won't do anything about it.
Does anybody else have, go on?
One thing which flagged up concern for me initially was when Mary Claire and I first made contact with the IMB, when we had a meeting with somebody. You know, we were informed that the IMB gets its funding from HMPPS, but it's an arm's length body. So how can something in my thought, I think, how on earth can it be completely independent? Because you can't rock the cradle too much, and you know, you don't upset the hand what feeds you, do you? And initially, when we made contact, I was typing the email address in what I had, and I thought .gov.uk. I thought, well, it's, you know, it's just looking like it's part of the system, you know, not even an independent domain name to separate it from HMPPS, which sort of rang alarm bells for me initially.
Yeah, that was one of the challenges that we had when we spoke to their marketing lead around some of the things that they're hoping to achieve, which, you know, I personally have been banging on about for at least a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. I think I was asked to do an article for, I thought it was the IMB magazine. Apparently it's not, it's like an offshoot of some sort of magazine. But basically it was that challenge within it. It was, you know, you're not seen as credible in the people that you purport to serve for whatever reason. How independent are you? I mean, a lot of you that are on Twitter will have seen the Faith Spears war that goes on and on around, you know, she was an ex-IMB member, and she kind of is the famous whistleblower that's blew it all up, and she's quite an antagonist of them as a system, as a statutory body. So that kind of, yeah, the independence element has always been under scrutiny, I think, since then. But also around the people that they're employing, their recruitment practices, and how that damages both the credibility and the access, you know, the inclusivity of them as an organisation. And one of the things that actually I mentioned in the article was about recruiting people with lived experience. You know, it's a voluntary role. Most people coming out of prison, we know from research and from our own journey, start off as volunteers doing various things to grow their skills. They still want to be engaged with the criminal justice system because it's what they know. They're passionate about helping people still trapped within it. For me, it felt like a bit of a no-brainer. Who is going to advocate for prisoners' rights more than the ex-prisoner who has lived it and knows, knows the dynamics, knows that some things need to be taken with a pinch of salt because they're not true, and knows that other things aren't spoken about because they're very, very prevalent in the system, such as officer corruption and stuff like that. So yeah, that challenge was in the article, and when Adam and I spoke to Rachel about this event and stuff, they did say that they want to recruit people with lived experience. So I think that's positive. It's positive if people do it, I guess, and if they make it known that they're doing it. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? The IMB potentially being recruiting people with lived experience, or is there a sense of we need to just scrap the IMB altogether and maybe create our own independent body or watchdog that has, prisoner rights at its heart?
Second option for me.
Scrap the IMB, you don't think it?
Because I think, and I'm only just speaking as I find where I am, it might be totally different all around the country. I'm not sure, but I think it is that. I mean, it's great that they're looking at the whole lived experience agenda, but to me, that's not the issue. The issue is the independence. That's the issue. So then I'm thinking about what training do they do, what qualification, all the rest of it, but yeah, it is that independence part.
So that's the sticking point, is the independence. How independent are they from the government? How can they be almost a policing body, which is what they do? They're an investigative body, aren't they, essentially?
Yeah.
Good point.
What I will just say on the back of that, I totally agree. It's like a boys' club, so if you put, a complaint against someone in a certain prison, the governor gets involved, and they all know each other. In my experience, I've seen this. So there's, as Joss was saying, there's no independence. It's non-existent, unfortunately, in my experience. It won't be across all the board up and down the prisons that we have, but they all work together. They all go out drinking together. They all look after each other, and so unfortunately, it's just like that. But it's like that in everything, I guess. But we do need to possibly scrap it and have independent people with lived experience, someone that won't be biased, but then it could go biased the other way. So you never know. So
And be anti.
Yeah, it can be like that when you get a group of people with lived experience. It can go the other way. I'm not saying it will, but there's both ends of the spectrum as well.
It's definitely where independence actually here trumps lived experience. Lived experience or not in this sort of scenario shouldn't matter, just as long as somebody's got integrity and is the right person for the role. That's more important than being lived experienced or not.
I mean, hearing that they are into recruiting or into the idea of recruiting people with lived experience, does that make any of you interested in applying? For example, you, Bill, I know you're doing a lot with a lot of different organisations at the moment. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
For the last 20 weeks, I've been going into prison doing workshops with the prisoners and having some amazing effects with them. I go back there with the Shannon Trust as well. I mean, I would definitely look into it, on a limited basis. But yeah, basically for me, it comes down to helping the prisoners in the best possible light. Forget about anything else. It's helping them, and if I can make the time, of course I would. But obviously, it'd have to look at the timetable and the dates and the times, etc. But yeah, of course.
Yeah, I kind of want one of us to go through the process, and just see what it looks like from somebody on the outside trying to break in, if you like, forgive the pun. But yeah, I kind of want to know about their, because we know how exclusive the vetting process is in HNPPS for like people with convictions, the standard plus, the hoops you have to jump through, how long it takes. Like Lynn's been waiting for her security clearance
About 5 months now.
yeah, about 5 or 6 months now. So yeah, we know about these processes that are kind of a headache. I kind of want to know about those processes around, applying to be in the IMB. What does the training look like? What's the messaging that's going out there in terms of IMB members? Because I know when I did my key clearance, well, probably the same for a few of you, I was just shocked at the language that was used, and it's just interesting to me, that kind of culture that's ingrained from the get-go.
Yeah,
In-
I'll echo that. Is, you know, we need to infiltrate these systems and processes, don't we, in order to get change through. And I think that ticked a box what you said there, Marie Claire. But I mean, at the moment, I can't because I've got too much on with. But I might know somebody who might be up for that within our organisation. So I'll have a little chat, because I'm also, you know, we can't just go. You know, we've got to challenge the system, haven't we? As we all do. We've got to. If it's not right, we've got to try and do something about it.
I think we need to be careful as organisations that are contracted as well to the prisons, because there's a conflict of interest there. I know that because
Yeah.
Cara, who used to work for me, she was interested in becoming an IMB member, but she couldn't because of the conflict between us working with Birmingham and then also, I suppose, policing it and investigating it in that sense. So I know that there's some sensitivities around that contractually, but again, Billa, I don't think that would stand for you really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on license as well, so I don't know if that will
Ah.
impact. So I'm lucky that I get into prisons every week doing as a visitor anyway. But I mean, I can probably reach out to Juliet Lyons, who's the chair, and maybe get some information, and then I can email Adam, and you can share it with everyone.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Whatever I can find, I'll make a note now. If I find out anything, I'll share it with you guys.
Yeah, even if it's just about the criteria.
Yeah.
For example, we don't accept people on licence, or maybe we will on a case-by-case basis. That'd be brilliant. And then what we'll do is we'll share it with all our network members. Has anybody had any positive experiences that they can report where the IMB have been involved and actually done what they said they were going to do on the tin, and resolved something for a prisoner, or, you know, on the back of a complaint that was escalated, something like that? No.
Sort of. When I had an issue in HMP Northumberland and utilised the complaints procedure, I did approach IMB members who were loitering around at lunchtime one day and explained what had happened. And the response I got was, "Oh, you're better off just going straight to the PPO because it's a little bit beyond us." So I did go direct to the PPO, and they did actually uphold my complaint. But I was very shocked that the IMB didn't actually want to get involved first, instead of actually the matter having to be escalated further, you know. So I did get the right outcome upon their advice, but I felt a bit let down because I'd approached them and they weren't interested.
Interesting. What do you reckon do you think it was just generally they did feel like it was out of their
Because
knowledge, like beyond their knowledge?
I was openly accusing a senior officer of theft, which was actually proven, and I was refunded by the prison for goods to the value of which I lost.
Interesting. Let's get back to the presentation. So Adam, this is your bag, isn't it? So this is just a bit of background on the IMB.
Yeah, it's just some bits and pieces sourced from Wikipedia and the IMB's website. But the IMB was founded and established in 1952 under the Prisons Act, which stated every prison must have an independent monitoring board in order to ensure, you know, safety and fairness for people who are held in custody. The same goes for immigration removal centres, but that didn't kick in until I think it's the Immigration and Asylum Act 1999, what that falls under. IMB members apparently work an average of 2 to 3 days per month. That got me thinking, you know, there might be 15 to 20 members per institution, but if you've got a large prison with 1,000 inmates in, they're not really present to be seen very often, really, if you work out how many people could be there per week, you know. Most members are in post for over 3 years, which, as we discussed earlier about, you know, the sort of age group a lot of IMB members are, which there's nothing wrong with. You know, if somebody's well-intentioned and wants to do the right thing, it shouldn't matter how old they are. But there did seem to be a lot of people who were either of retirement age or semi-retired who just wanted to do something to fill their days in. You know, board members, you know, they can draw keys. They've got access to every part of the prison and prisoners, you know, at any time they want, sort of. Which, again, would that be detrimental for some people getting security cleared? Have they got too much freedom, or do they not have enough freedom?
Well, I was just thinking, everybody that I know, such as Lynn, myself, that have had key security clearance, we don't have unrestricted access to prisoners. That's one of the things that we're not allowed to do, I think, under security and standard vetting plus. challenge me again if this is different in your case, but we as key holders and ex-prisoners, I can have the keys to the wings industries, but I can't have cell keys. Has anybody had a different experience to that? I think that's a pretty standard thing. So that would be interesting. Firstly, go on, Billa.
Oh no, sorry, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Is that what you
Yeah,
understood?
yeah, because I go in and the volunteers that I go in with, you know, they have all the keys like yourself, but they don't have the actual cell keys. So
Nobody has a cell key.
no.
We
Is that even unique?
yeah, we don't have cell keys. There's only the officers that have cell keys. I've still got unrestricted access everywhere, but I can't. We don't get cell keys.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's the same for board members.
Maybe they've got the right to say to a prison officer, can you go and fetch me such and such? We want to have a meeting with him or her, you know?
Yeah, I would say that's so, because I've seen them yesterday, for example, and they were waiting for somebody to be unlocked. So there's no way they've got key to the cell as
Okay.
well.
So that's probably like a standard key rule then. I just
Yeah.
assume that they would have unrestricted access via their keys. But yeah, so not a massive ask from them, 2 to 3 days. Is that something you could manage, Villa? So we're just packaging you up to get inside the IMB, infiltrate.
I mean, I'll make my inquiries, but like I say, I'm on license till the end of the year.
I
So
think that would be the sticking point.
yeah, but I can do some whilst I'm in
It's
prisons
worth asking
anyway.
though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. I've got
What's-
good relationships
No,
with them.
you're
So
right.
Was that one of the things that you had to be off?
Yeah, right to be on.
Okay, yeah, so it's just that license thing. Lynn had to be off license before she could work in the prison. So that might just be a blanket thing, mightn't it, again? But it's just clarifying these things. It's important. If they're saying that one of their strategic missions is to get on board more lived experience, well, what does that look like? What's the process like? You know, what's the criteria?
Somebody commented on Twitter a while ago about on the New Leaf Network Twitter page.
I think it was
We reposted the photo, the screenshot. I think somebody had been in touch with the IMB and they said they would review applications on a case-by-case basis. But
Yeah.
if they've got sort of unlimited access to the prison, while excluding opening cell doors, well, as long as they'd still have to meet the standard vetting criteria, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I definitely think we want to put something in the bulletin around the IMB and how to access kind of applications. Maybe there's got to be some sort of link. We'll wait for Billa to get in touch with the chair, and then we'll hopefully have a bit more meat on the bone. But yeah, basically their sort of strategic vision is to recruit more people with lived experience of the CJS to be advocates. They also just they know that they've got this reputation as being a bit sort of like dinosaurs in terms of the age and the affluence and stuff like that. So they really want to tackle that. And I think the common sense way to do that is by bringing in more lived experience. It'll bring in the youth, it'll bring in the credibility. It's whether that's just a pipe dream or whether it's actually something that can be kind of made a reality, I suppose. So that, Billa, your help on that would be greatly appreciated. And they also wanted us to collate some constructive feedback from people with lived experience. So I guess that kind of leads us to what do you think deters people, especially those with lived experience like us, from applying to become an IMB member? Some of it I think we'll have spoken about already, but we're going to directly feed this back to them as constructive criticism so that they can chew on it and hear it from the horse's mouth. So what deters people, especially those with lived experience, from applying to become an IMB member? Billa, why is it something that you've never thought about before today?
Okay, I mean, I'm just going back into prisons. I'm busy doing other things, but I do see it, the IMB as an organization that is important, but from my experience it doesn't work. There's, especially if, okay, so top of my head what I'm thinking is, okay, so if I go in there and I've done a report and I thought, well, this is not on, so I've gone to the governor or the process that you're meant to be, they're just gonna just fob me off, basically. That's what just comes to my head at top, thinking about it.
Lack of credibility.
Definitely. I think that, but then, that's just a generalistic, just off the cuff thought as well. It won't be true of every situation, but it's a trust thing, I guess. Being security cleared, or they might be thinking that you're trying to help people on the sly or something like that. I've seen all sorts of situations go on. I mean, I'm trying to think of something positive, but I don't know. I don't think it's, like you say, credible or something that can really ultimately change anything for the prisoners in a positive way. It'll just be another tick box exercise and put in a file, never looked at again, in my opinion.
No, thank you. And I think that's the general consensus when I speak to prisoners. That's the vibe that I get. It's like, is it worth the paper it's written on? It's not worth the energy. It's that kind of, why would we bother? Unfortunately.
But on the back of that, sorry, just before you come in, but we've got to start somewhere. This entity is already in place, and changes do need to be made, and it's following through on these changes and making the actual infrastructure, the policies, what they need to be. Maybe they need to be looked at, to make a real change, whatever it may be. But it's there, it's potentially there, or it does a lot of good things that we may all not even know. I mean, they do bring a lot of awareness to deaths in custody, as I know personally, working with Juliet. But it's, things do need to change. Obviously, what they're doing now is not working, but that doesn't mean that we're down tools. Maybe we look at it from a different angle and have everyone have their own different input and shape it and mold it into what it needs to be.
Because even thinking about the obstacles that would be put in place, they're on license, they can't possibly go in and be an IMB member. But what about them is school? So you've got your old fashioned typical IMB member, let's call her Boris. Boris, who goes around the prison, who isn't credible. What about Boris having a peer ex-prisoner like myself, like yourself? So you're working together in tandem. So the risk isn't there. The fear of corruption, all that fear around risk that just necessarily surrounds us as ex-prisoners, but you're still able to just give that different insight around, actually we should be speaking to this person, we should be looking at the steg, we should be having different conversations, we probably shouldn't be joined at the hip, with just a different perspective. It's like, how do we bridge that gap? Because they're obviously trying to achieve that. They've told us with their own mouths that what they want, but then they're not attending this meeting, for example, to hear the constructive feedback and to hear all of your views around the reality of how they're perceived at the moment. So for me, it's a little bit frustrating even from this point, because they were like, yeah, we want to hear it. Do you want to hear it? If you're going to hear it, are you going to act on it? Like, it just feels a little bit empty and a bit tokenistic, even, even asking for constructive criticism to me.
One thing I would do straight off the bat, I would make it a paid position, at least expenses, then it's not just voluntary, at least if they get the petrol covered. Because if the people with lived experience that just come out of prison, every penny counts, as we all know on the out, with prices up the roof, going up.
So one of the things that they said about that, so as a volunteer, all your expenses should be met anyway. You should never be out of pocket. So that's a standard policy that they've got. But she even said something quite innovative around, even if you have to pay for childcare and stuff, they're trying to get money for things like that, to just really reduce the barriers so that they get more young parents, young mums in and stuff. Again, who's paying for that, I suppose, is the challenge that comes out of that. Who's paying for those expenses? Is it the government? Is
there training involved? Do you get paid for that as well? There's, I'm thinking about it now. It seems quite interesting, actually. Because obviously they must do some sort of training with you, and I guess what I'll do, I'm going to look into it and let you guys know what I find.
And that was some of our suggestion, even around the current IMB, even if you're not getting any ex-prisoners or people with lived experience involved, how about having us involved in the training, so that we're breaking down barriers with these middle class white people to say, this is the kind of thing that we experienced when we was in prison. This is the kind of stuff that isn't spoken about. This is your reputation. This is what you're up against. People don't see you as having any teeth, being credible, getting anything sorted. Do you know what I mean? Kind of really taking the reality to them, as opposed to, oh, having this nice fluffy training that allows them to do their job not very well. Yeah, interesting though. I'm fascinated with the IMB as a body and everything about it. Has anybody else got anything else around the recruitment discussion?
Something struck me with what you said before, Marie-Claire, about tokenism. Well, I'm just wondering if a lot of people could be put off from potentially applying if they feel like if they're going to go in there and be the only lived experienced one amongst a handful of other IMB members, are they going to feel like the tokenistic ex-prisoner who will always think, hang on, I don't really fit in with these people. You know, they're all speaking a complete different language and looking at things from a completely different perspective, which again backs up why we would come in handy to actually train people to actually see things from our point of view.
Yeah, and I think just the value of being involved in it and challenging things. The difficulty is with lived experience, and I'm speaking from my own perspective, is I can be quite spiky around, because I'm passionate, because I actually really care about prisoner issues. I think it can make us go that we're like a dog with a bone, aren't we? We don't really, we're not going to take some fluffy answer that an officer might give an IMB member. Actually, we're probably going to be a lot more challenging and a lot more sort of dogged around our approach, which, let's be honest, do the prisons want that?
It wouldn't look very good standing there on a prison land and shouting and bawling at an officer saying, well, you can't threaten me with an IEP warning, mate. You know what I mean? Because I don't live here anymore. You know, we'd all have to be a bit more reserved.
Yeah.
I think what would be really helpful if we understood some of the outcomes from the IMB as well. Some of what, some of their achievements. Because I think it's this whole kind of mystery, isn't it, in terms of, we know that the conditions, the welfare and the humanity side of it within our prison system is a bit of a shambles. So it's kind of, that's the problem I have with it. It's like, where is the
quantifiable service that they're offering?
Totally, yeah.
I think that's a really good point to go back to them with, actually, Adam. It's like, what does good look like for you? What is success to the IMB? Is it reducing complaints within a prison? Is it what? None of us have got a clue. So that'd be a really good question to go back to them about, I think. Well done, thanks for that, Josh.
Ideally, striving to make themselves not needed should be the goal, really, shouldn't it? So it'll be interesting to see what their targets are to reduce things.
Yeah, I just think that's a really good question to bounce back at them. What are you aiming for? So I think we've kind of discussed what we think we should feed back. It's around the credibility, the tokenism, the access routes in, I think, and also, the pertinent question around what is it that you're trying to achieve as a body? What is a win for you guys? What does it look like? And what does it look like for prisoners as well? So hopefully you've all enjoyed, or at least felt a little bit stimulated by today's discussion. If you have any more thoughts or things that you want to kind of send after the fact, you've all got my number, or you've got Adam's email address and stuff. Just fire it across if you get any little glimmers of genius, like I know you all do. Please book onto our conference and awards and just have a think if there's anything you want to do around connection. It can be anything, as long as it's got that kind of theme running through it. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you and your networks, and obviously nominate your people with lived experience and those that you work with that haven't got lived experience, because we want to celebrate them. We want to make this a thing. This is the feedback that we got from my studies. It was around creating a platform for you guys so that we can celebrate the great work that you're doing, like you, Billa, going into prisons as a volunteer, working for a variety of organisations. Like, you're doing astounding work out there, and people like you should be shouted about a lot. So yeah, we're happy to do that. Thanks. Has anyone got anything else they wanted to say or share before we sign off and let you get back to your days? How did this time work out for everybody, by the way? Because we moved it a bit earlier. Do you prefer the early start or do you prefer a later start?
Yeah, this works.
A bit earlier.
Yeah, but obviously things can change, but yeah, it worked today.
So if we say sort of 2-3 start, 2 p.m, 3 p.m. start, then hopefully we'll get a few more people joining next time. Lovely. Great to have some new. Go on. Oh, Val.
Yeah, just want to say, for Akbar Foundation, it would be really great to just get more connections and more people actually do the sort of surrogate services, because we are sort of an organization which works all over the UK really, but we're doing writing, publishing, mentoring, and we do it through letters and everything as well. But we don't have enough sort of direct we can't directly actually go to prisons anymore. Since COVID, we had to stop all these workshops which we used to do in prisons and other things. We just try to connect to people and through online and through our workshops, and we also provide like mentoring and everything. But just to be able to, like, if anybody's interested, please let us know, because it would be great if you have more who actually go there and actually talk to the people who are in prisons or others who are in this type of situations. This would help us actually to spread our word. Thanks.
So sorry, Val, just to clarify what you were asking for then, you're asking for support organisations on the outside, is that correct?
Generally just to invite everyone who is interested just to get in touch with me, I've got my email there, and just to say if they're interested actually to promote our writing and publishing services, mentoring services for prisoners and everything, and just the ones who actually go there and actually have contact with prisoners directly, if they go there, because we have actually had to stop doing workshops in prisons since COVID, and we just try to reach them through our projects and letters and everything, and they get we're doing writing competitions, all sorts of things, also mentoring projects with lived experience mentors and everything, but we can only actually communicate with them through letters, or otherwise if they are able to access online services. But
have you thought about putting an advert in the Inside Times and some of the prison publications?
Unfortunately, we don't get on well with Inside Time. I may say a long story, but we had quite a lot of others
Mark
who actually
Leach,
promoted
Inside
us, so
Times.
like Lady Wall, Forward Trust, Adam. I mean, everyone else is supporting us. Prison Radio, Prison Learning Association, Channel Trust. Everyone else supports us, but it was through some sort of issues with Inside Time, we are not able to promote ourselves through Inside Time at the moment, but this is a long story really.
No worries, we won't go into that now then, Val. Anybody else want to share? Anybody else want to share about the work that they do, because it is a bit of a networking thing as well? Yeah, if anybody does want to talk about the work that you're doing or hoping to do, or if looking for partners or anything, this would be the time.
I'll just say one thing that I'm doing that was quite interesting. So I've been invited to go to universities. The last one was Leeds Trinity University, to speak to, I think it was 80 officers that go through something called Unlocked Graduates.
Yeah.
So they do a master's. So I did like a workshop about my story and stuff like that. So I've been invited to go down to Bristol in the next month or two as well for something.
I hope they're paying you for it, Billa.
Yeah. Don't worry about me. I get looked after.
Good.
You got to look after the ends.
Quite often they'll just wring as much out of you as they can for free without paying you for it.
No. But yeah, I do a lot of work in the communities as well, and integration like you guys do, with people coming out of prison, and and then they speak to someone like myself. I've got a podcast documentary going into prisons, been out 2 years tomorrow, so it's quite a humbling sort of time, and experience, and if I can get through to one person, that'll be great. So, and just connecting with you since I've come out since last year. I might not be able to come every workshop, but I always keep up to date with what Adam sends out and everything, and looking forward to the conference as well. So, and I'm looking forward to getting to all know you guys, you know, Tev a little bit. Want to, you know, I'll reach out to Nick and Josh as well, and obviously Adam and yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you to you guys.
Well, that's what it's about, just creating a positive, quiet community. No, creating a positive community of people like us that really do give a damn, and hopefully just having that as a constant there, that we can tap more and more people as they're coming out the gate. You know, Lynn came and worked for me pretty much straight away, getting out the gate. You, Billa, was quite clearly ready to hit the ground running when you got out. And it's for people like that, and maybe not as far along as you, that's what this was created for, to present opportunities, to celebrate, to join up the dots on a national level, so that we can really, you know, offer some good interventions to people that want to access them.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing as well. At the end of the year, when I'm off license, I've got 1 year funding now to support everything that I do, and opening up my own company as well, which is going to be called WISE, which stands for Wellbeing, Inspires, Strength and Empowerment. So I'm working on the website. The CIC will be out soon, and hopefully, you know, work closely with you guys at New Leaf. So yeah, it's all positive.
Yeah, and it's all that sort of stuff. Like Josh has been in that situation of starting from scratch. You know, that's another reason why the network was set up, to help people like you springboard a little. You know, ultimately there's loads of learning that you're going to be engaging in, that you've got to go through as an entrepreneur. But if we can help you speed up that process in terms of policies and procedures, you know, funding knowledge, and little hints and tips, you know, networks, all that sort of stuff. That's again what the network was created for. So hit us up, let us know, you know, use us for what we're here for. Really, we're here for people like you, and people like me, and people like her.
Yeah.
Can I just say before we go, I've been out of prison now 2 years, July just gone.
Wow.
I've been off license now since January, and it's wonderful. It really is, the work that we all do, and being invited to the network today and listening what you've all got to say. We're all here just to help them ex-offenders and also people in prison, and I'm so passionate about it. You know, I never thought that I'd be in this situation, but now I'm for the prisoners, even though I work inside reception, which I'm really, really grateful to do, instead of standing outside, which I did, stood outside the gate for 10 months. So I'm inside now, and you know, I just want to, you know, as many lads as I can help, and hopefully, you know, we'll all carry on with the good work that we've got. We do.
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is because I'm going to be coming off license soon. So what is the main difference for you, besides, I guess, being able to have your passport and your weekly probation call? Is it anything else, or is it psychological? Right, it's off
just
you now.
Psychological, that when I was on license, even though my probation officer would ring me, and all she'd say to me was, "Lynn, how's work going? How's the prison going?" Because she knew what work I was doing. But there was always something in the back of my mind thinking, you know, if I do something wrong or something like that, they're going to get me back into prison again. But after the 20th of January this year, it was just as though something was lifted from me. And
it feels
you know,
like proper freedom.
It does, yeah.
Even though you know you can always land, you know you can land up back in jail.
Yeah,
for the thing, but it just feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks. So I'll be on cloud nine around the time conference comes.
Did you have something you're going to say then, Josh?
Yeah, I was just going to quickly say it's also about perception as well with the people that we're working with. You know, in their something happens in their minds when, for me, it was when my incident became spent. You know. And some of you may or may not have seen the growth of my organisation over the last particularly 3 years. And there was no coincidence, is things started going upwards when the people that I'm working with, PCCs, the prisons and that, saw that I didn't have an unspent conviction. You know, so I'm guessing it's the same where, you know, you come off license. It is, you know, that they see you differently, and it shouldn't be like that, but it is. So
I
yeah,
wonder about that though,
absolutely.
Josh. I wonder about that, whether that's an internal thing that you
Totally.
know, that we carry around, in terms of we feel differently when our conviction's spent, as opposed to when it's still there and anybody can Google it. I think sometimes it's a bit more of that than the external judgment that we fear is going on. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? But it's interesting, definitely. The ceilings that we put upon ourselves, like, more than anything. And if we can reduce that stigma and that judgment for others coming out as a network, that's what it's all about, really.
I think that's really interesting for me, to be fair, because I talk to lads obviously every day, and I'm sort of saying, oh, it doesn't really matter too much about, you know, your unspent convictions, because the employers that I'm working with obviously don't care. But if you, as a person, have got that in you to think I'm still on license, or I'm still, my conviction's still unspent, whether you put that out there, do you get what I mean? Rather than it being anybody else, it's you. Just that concern and that worry all the time that something could happen. Like you say, Lynn, you've just got to do one thing wrong. I mean, how many times do we hear the stories about the recalls?
Yeah.
You know, all I did was go to, you know, do this, or all I did was that. It must be awful to have that hanging over your head.
One of the most powerful things that we had around spent convictions was one of our trainees. So he was a young person. I think he's like 20 now, so he would have been like 19 at the time. And we were just doing some work on disclosures, and, you know, they hadn't even heard of a spent conviction. So it's all that education around what is a conviction, what's not that isn't spent and that is spent. Anyway, we did some digging, found his old probation officer, yacht worker, and his conviction was spent. So it was that whole conversation around, right, you never have to talk about this again unless you're going for an enhanced DBS. And he was just like, oh my God, like, he felt like an innocent person again, because that's what we said to him. There was another trainee that hadn't had any convictions, and we were like, you are just like this young person now. You are no different. You're not an ex-offender. You know, you can drop all those unhealthy labels and unhelpful labels. You are just a normal young person now. And he was like, the look in his face was just beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it is, like you say, about education, you know, and understanding when it becomes spent.
Yeah,
you know, even from being inside the prison, people just think, oh yeah, I'm stuffed now, it's never going to be spent, it's always going to be on my record. And you're like, not really.
not necessarily.
Yeah. Interesting.
Maybe we need to do a session on that, a networking event on that, around disclosure, or I don't know what that would look like, but it's not just about the practicalities of it, but the emotionality around it. Do you know what I mean? And what it means for us as individuals.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have a think about it.
Sorry, that's just pressed a button for me to speak to our probation officers and departments to actually, you know, they should be having those conversations with people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Honestly, it just doesn't happen. Like, I see lads within the last few weeks of their sentence, and I'll say, oh, have you done a disclosure statement? And they're like, what's that? And it breaks my heart, because from like years of doing inductions, I think this should have been talked about right at the beginning of your sentence, to say, you know, you need to be working out how you can come across to an employer on release, or, you know, how you can disclose your offence in your own way, rather than it just being a DBS of saying you did this and this is how long you've got. But what have you done? Who are you as a person going for that job? It's not about your conviction, it's about what you've done. And
also the DBS process itself is flawed, isn't it? Because there's no advice there about, oh, if people have got these convictions, what does that mean? Then they're unemployable, or are they not employed? There's no sort of guidance around it. It's just, you do a DBS, it tells you if you've got a conviction, and then that's it. It's up to you as an organisation to do with that as you will. I just find it a really bizarre process, especially in terms of filtering. I mean, we're quite opposite to that. We prefer people to have convictions to get on board with us, so it's like a positive in our organisation, as I'm sure it is in Josh's and other organisations. But yeah, it's crazy. Obviously, unless you're a teacher that's got specific convictions against children, then it's obvious. But what about the most general convictions? How do they impact on jobs and stuff? It's just mental.
It makes me chuckle sometimes, because we're always asked, you know, have your staff got DBSs? And it's just like,